Should I have, I don't know, maybe showered before making the video to look slightly presentable? Yeah, maybe I should have. But I have a comb, so who cares? I got a camera so that I could shoot Clapped 6 on it. Clapped 6 coming next year sometime. So I was thinking of ideas to do, excuses really, to test out the new camera. So I thought, screw it. We're gonna do a video on Owl City. I'd like to make myself believe. If we're talking artists that are incredibly nostalgic to me personally, well, I listened to Owl City religiously when I was like 4 years old, so that has to count for something. I wanted to discuss my Owl City opinions as they're pretty hot takes. And I'm just gonna go through his filmography, starting with Of June. Because you see, Owl City originally started making music on, get this, MySpace. Oh, that's hysterical. That's why he started putting his music out, like, online and stuff. And then in 2007, he took all of the music he had assembled, or all the best music he had assembled over the years, and compiled it into an album called Of June. Of June is really just an EP. It's only 7 songs long. But in those 7 songs, it leaves not a very big impression. The thing about Of June is that it's very much a kind of like a beta project. It's kind of there just to sell you on Owl City as a concept, and I guess it does that kind of okay. You see, everything that Of June does, future Owl City projects do so much better, so why would you ever want to go back to Of June? The standout song here is probably Hello Seattle, but for that one song specifically, Owl City remade it 2 other times. So there is literally no point to listen to the old version when the other versions are improved in basically every way. That's not to say I dislike Of June, it's just it leaves the littlest impact over any of his albums in his discography. But Owl City's next project, it's not bad. Maybe I'm Dreaming is basically just Of June again, but better. Of June is a pretty okay starter album, but Maybe I'm Dreaming has songs I would actually listen to. I mean, Rainbow Veins is good, it's got Saltwater Room on it, it's got, On the Wing, I think. And with Of June and Maybe I'm Dreaming, you have the first era of the Owl City albums. 2007 to 2008 is the, beginners, like, kind of techno-ish era, certified. Anyway, now after Maybe I'm Dreaming, we reach the big part of Owl City's discography. The Fireflies era. So in 2009, Owl City officially broke out with his 3rd album, Ocean Eyes, which he specifically broke out with 2 songs, Fireflies and Vanilla Twilight. And out of those 2 songs, Fireflies is the bigger one by far anyway, so yeah, Owl City, to many people, is just Fireflies and nothing else. Which is kind of a shame, because the Ocean Eyes album is pretty good. It might be his best album, honestly. I mean, Fireflies is pretty good on its own, but Vanilla Twilight is great, Cave-In is great, the Bird and the Worm song is good. And the Ocean Eyes album is really where you realize Owl City's lyricism. Owl City has a way with words. And that way doesn't really make sense a lot of the time. I feel like Owl City uses words as more of another instrument with to go along with the rest of the song. He doesn't really view words as something to construct a sentence. Because basically all the words in a song just sound pretty, but then if you try to actually unravel what he's actually saying, it doesn't really make any sense, but it sounds nice, so whatever. Now, this isn't the case all the time, and he eventually got more into, creating songs with actual storylines and stuff, and that are about things. But honestly, I think Owl City is at its best when he's not trying to create any kind of narrative or anything with his songs, and he's just using the lyrics as vehicles just to drive the song forward. And if we're talking about Ocean Eyes, we have to talk about Ocean Eyes Deluxe Edition. Because if the thing with Ocean Eyes is that there's two versions of it. There's the normal version, and then there's the Deluxe Edition that came out later the same year. And the Deluxe Edition is infinitely the best version because it includes the original 12 songs, plus 5 new songs and 2 remixes, which is wild. There are 20 songs on Deluxe Edition of Ocean Eyes. It's basically a double album at that point. And that's pretty cool. And Owl City would go on to create deluxe editions of his future albums, but he definitely did it best here in Ocean Eyes because he basically gave the consumer an entire other album on top of the first album with it. And you see, after Ocean Eyes, Owl City's next album had a lot riding on it, because he got a huge hit with Fireflies, and I feel like there was a lot of pressure on him to keep that momentum going. His fourth album was going to dictate whether he was going to become a mainstay household name, or, that guy that wrote Fireflies, that guy? Oh yeah, I know that guy, yeah. That's what he was going to be relegated to if the next album wasn't a success. And I feel like you can feel that pressure on All Things Bright and Beautiful, which was his next album, released in 2011. You can feel the pressure that he's just like every other song, he's trying to make the next big thing. And this leads to kind of half-hearted results. All Things Bright and Beautiful is a good album, with some great songs, and some fantastic moments. It doesn't feel as complete as other albums in his discography, you know what I mean? There just seems to be a lot of filler and just the less important songs on All Things Bright and Beautiful. And it basically feels like Ocean Eyes 2, but just, not as good. But don't get that too confused. I do like quite a few songs on here, like The Real World is pretty good, Deer in the Headlights is pretty good, Honey and the Bee is okay, Hospital Flowers is pretty great. Alligator Sky is... I love Alligator Sky. Specifically, the non-rap version. The rap version is pretty good, but, come on. Owl City and rap they don't mesh that great together. Then Plant Life is pretty good. How I Became the Sea is okay. Yeah, that's the thing. All Things Bright and Beautiful is a pretty good album, but it's just, it's not really as good as Ocean Eyes, and it's basically on par with Maybe I'm Dreaming. Then we go to the next album, Midsummer Station, released in 2012. And this is the cutoff point for me, these 5 albums are the ones that I grew up with, the ones I'm really familiar with. And Midsummer Station was the last one that I really grew up with as a child. And Midsummer Station marked another era in Owl City's career, which was the angst zone. Midsummer Station has all the things you know and love for Owl City. It's got the techno, it's got the lyricism, it's got the, fun, upbeat kind of stuff. But it is way angstier than anything he made before, and anything he really made after, honestly. And while that is really fun sometimes, I don't think Midsummer Station is an amazing album. I think the best things about it, other than the name and the artwork, are Silhouette, Dementia, and Metropolis. All of those songs are pretty good. Dementia specifically is a huge banger, and it gives off very much like late 2000s boy band vibes, and that's really not a bad thing. There was also a special edition, or acoustic edition, of Midsummer Station, which included 3 remixes of previous songs and 2 new songs. And this version is fine, but like if you were to buy that version, you wouldn't get all the other songs on the album. Then, Ultraviolet. You see, in 2014, between the releases of Mobile Orchestra and Midsummer Station, Owl City released Ultraviolet, which is the perfect midpoint between the two albums. It's genius. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that this may be the greatest thing Owl City ever made. It's a 3-song EP, but each song, is such a banger, and they all flow together so well, and my little heart. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, and then there's Mobile Orchestra in 2015, which is the one that nobody talks about. Like I said, I didn't listen to this one growing up, so maybe it's just, this is just some kind of bias. But I never hear anybody talk about Mobile Orchestra. Nobody's like, man, that one's my favorite. Which is kind of too bad, because I honestly think it's not that bad. Mobile Orchestra, dare I say, it's pretty good. I mean, yes, it has quite a bit of fluff, but the good songs on that album are, like, the best songs in, like, his entire discography. I mean, The Verge is pretty great. Unbelievable is fantastic. This Isn't the End. I mean, come on. All absolute classics, and I think we need to start saying this more in society. Mobile Orchestra is pretty good, but when you listen to it, you notice that this album is way more narrative focused than any of his previous albums. Certain songs have like themes and like stories and stuff. That's wild. But it still follows into the same era as Midsummer Station. But this kind of style of writing would become way more apparent in the next Owl City album, Cinematic, in 2018. Cinematic was the start of a new era called, I'm a Simple Country Boy era. Now, I'm gonna try to say this as lightly as possible, because I know my sister loves this album to death, so let me say this as kindly as I can. Cinematic is the worst Owl City album by far. Now, when I say that, I don't think Cinematic is awful. In fact, I kind of like it sometimes. House Wren is not bad. I kind of like House Wren a little bit. And I can appreciate that Owl City tried to go for a more, personal and, nicer kind of songs and stuff. But the thing about it is just, I don't think that's where his strong suit lies. Every time he tries to do, a song with like narrative and themes and stuff, it's not as great as when he's just trying to create a feeling or something. He's way better at immersion than storytelling. But like I said, I don't think Cinematic is awful. It's just, could be better. And Owl City hasn't made a new album since Cinematic. He's like still alive. We still know of some stuff, he's posted on Instagram sometimes. But he hasn't released any new music, I think, since it was released. Which is kind of weird. I hope he's working on something big, because, just because I don't like Cinematic doesn't mean I don't want to see more of Owl City.